If every Kirblog's so special, maybe I can make what I wanna make. Tonight is the season finale of Mob Psycho 100. And so therefore, while I'm in the middle of working on tome stuff and playing Kingdom Hearts 3, I wanted to do a little celebratory Kirblog to talk about my experiences working on the show, because I realized I hadn't done that actually at all. I think I had intended like several Animaprils ago to do an interview with Chris Kaysen, who is the voice director for the show. However, he is constantly busy doing 8,000 things, so best wishes to him, and big thanks to him for all the hard work he put into directing the series. A little quick thing. Well, first of all, I'm doing this because tonight, if you didn't get it, is the Season 1 finale, the final episode of Mob Psycho Season 1, airing on Adult Swim. It's had a lovely run on there. Very happy it finally got on TV after all this time. Still no word about recording for Season 2 just yet or anything. Just to put that out there first. And also, I'll have a link at the very end if you want to check this out. A while back, in fact, I think it was a couple years ago already, we did an AMA, myself and a bunch of the voice cast. It was back in February of 2017. Myself, Casey Mongelo, Kyle McCarley, and Eric Kimmerer of the main cast of the show got together, and we did an AMA kind of thing where we were answering questions from like a live stream and stuff, and talked about a lot of the show back when it was freshly airing on the Funimation streaming service, which is where the Season 2 dub will inevitably be airing when we get to doing it. So yeah, but in the meantime, I wanted to just look back on some memories of the show and everything. So first of all, I was slightly familiar with Mob Psycho, but not by much before I started working on it. I did know it was created by the creator of One Punch Man, which by that point I had watched, and was, as some of you guys may or may not remember, a little bit let down by all the hype that was surrounding the show, and I watched it for myself, and I was like, it's okay. I didn't really enjoy it massively that much, but it was fun for what it's worth. And Mike Lucas actually had told me that I was probably going to like Mob Psycho 100 a lot more, because it was he considered it to be one's better story in terms of like the characters and the heart to it and everything. And I'm like, okay, so and I think I'd probably seen when the redraw Reigen meme was first occurring back when the show was airing in I guess this would have been the summer of 2016, I think. So I had seen, who's this guy with he looks like Ichigo with no spikes in his hair and like wearing a business suit or something. So, but that was really all I knew. And actually, major shout out to Gina, Sneaky Gina on Twitter, who's been a longtime fan of the series and read the manga and everything or whatever. And she was like completely of her own accord had come to me one day and was telling me, by the way, Chris, you'd make a really good voice for this Reigen character. Like, not knowing anything about, any prospect of if I'd audition or not. And I was like, I appreciate it. That's fine. I don't usually book leads with too many shows or whatever, but we'll see what happens. And then the auditions came around, and Reigen was the only character for Mob Psycho that I had been sent an audition for, actually. So I remember we had, if anybody's never talked about this in other like voiceover interviews or whatever, Bang Zoom will often send clips of the character as reference for the scenes that we're recording for, so we can see what the proper context is and everything, which is nice. So I remember I recorded the scene where I was performing the sorcery crush on one of the customers that came into the Spirits and Such consultation office. And then the other one was while I was talking to Mob on the phone about not falling for Tomei Kurata's little, BS from the Esper's psychic club or whatever at the school, and the Liars Club, the loafing around and being a loser club. So I did those two scenes, and I think I did 2 takes for Reigen, although it's funny because one of them I think I was just trying to emulate a little bit of what Takehito Sakurai was doing, and then the other one I was just sort of talking, and neither of which was very far off from just me being me, I guess. But it happened to fit, and then I booked the part. And so shortly after that, to kind of get myself educated on what I was in for, I started watching the entire series. I watched all 13 episodes of Season 1 before I started recording for the first episode. And I remember we began the recording process right around Thanksgiving time of 2016, fall, yeah. And my God, the first episode I had in total over 8 hours of recording, not all in one sitting, mind you, but like just on episode 1, I spent over 8 hours of total recording time on just that first episode with Reigen. As I'm sure fans remember, that episode has just, monologues upon monologues of Reigen just talking forever about tons of stuff. And it actually was around that time that I got to finally, Kyle McCarley, the voice of Mob, and I had met very briefly on a callback for the series Erased, which we were both in the running for, I think, one of the main characters in that show. And I had known of Kyle just by name because he was actually in Disgaea 5, Alliance of Vengeance. That was the first time I became aware of him. And then shortly after that, I think, was when he started on Gundam Iron-Blooded Orphans, where he plays Mikazuki. And but we met, and it was funny because I think kind of by process of elimination, I sort of like guessed that he was going to be the voice of Mob, and I ended up being correct. Which, funnily enough, this is way later, but I also guessed correctly that Casey Mangelo, like shortly after she moved to LA, was going to book the part of Sho Suzuki, which she did, which was awesome. And so then we started recording, going through the show and everything, and God, I knew that this show was a big deal and people love this character, so I remember I studied up, and I think I even rewatched certain scenes and certain episodes ahead of time a few times just to make sure that I really knew the context of everything and I was really like well prepared. And Reigen is one particular character that I really tried to go out of my way with coming up with different ideas for like funny little things to like do with all the lines. Mike McFarland, who is the writer for One Punch Man as well, which is actually part of the reason why we ended up doing it at Bang Zoom, even though it was part of the Crunchyroll Funimation deal at the time. They didn't end up recording it because Crunchyroll apparently specifically wanted the One Punch Man staff, which was Chris Kaysen directing and Mike McFarland writing. So Mike, had some fun liberties tossed in here and there. Like he had, of course, the stuff like, feel free to Google me and all that. And, but it was pretty close to what the Japanese script was. So for the most part, I already knew, like, a lot of the dialogue. And, we made adjustments on the fly. A lot of stuff changes, like, in the middle of recording just to, fit the mouth movements and everything. But I really tried to go, like, 100%. I mean, if any of you guys have ever seen that, Reigen Makes Silly Noises compilation that one person on YouTube made, which thank you if you're listening. Thank you for making that, by the way. You could tell, like, I tried to, squeeze in a lot of little goofy sounds, and I tried to do some little dumb references, minor things, little offhandedly. I remember like when Reigen's like pretending to channel somebody's like dead father or something, and I was doing like this, when he kind of gives up halfway through with the impression of his dad's voice or whatever. He's doing this like, I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm kind of doing this like Chris O'Neill from Newgrounds sort of thing, like the, kind of half and half not caring sort of acting style. So sorry, Chris. And then what else? There was, whenever he has to say super shady, I really put a lot of emphasis on shady because, shady Fox, of course, things like that. And yeah, just generally, I mean, he was so up my alley to begin with because I remember I saw Trevor Duvall in the lobby at Bang Zoom one day before I was about to go in and record, and he was like, "So what are you doing today?" I was like, "I'm basically playing Jim Carrey as an anime character," and he's like, "Oh, cool, very nice, relaxing, not screaming session." I was like, "Oh yeah, totally." So. I knew he was a high energy, nutball of a character, but I was very excited about it because there's part of me that still almost kind of feels that like getting Reigen was like a fluke. Because as a lot of you guys know, Bang Zoom tends to cast me as a lot of these very serious, down-to-earth kind of characters like this. Guys like Karna and Uroko, those kind of characters. So Reigen was, but he's more of the type of character that I'm personally comfortable with portraying, because he was a total gift because he's so rangeful and like out there and ridiculous and over the top and etc. He's a total gift of a character, to be honest, because not only is he up my alley, but he's just tons of fun, like at all times. Like he's never bored. He's never boring to me. Like I'm always on my toes when I'm playing him. And June, our engineer, was fantastic, and Chris Kaysen was always very collaborative and was always open to hearing ideas that I had for playing with the line and maybe adding a word or taking out a word or changing something or and it felt like a very collaborative process. And it was nice because, we did have some pretty strict deadlines because it was technically sort of a simuldub, even though it was airing after the show had already, finished its run in Japan. We still had to keep up with the schedule of getting the episodes done in a timely fashion. I remember, I think Ben Diskin even said, because he was one of the Claw villains, the fire pyrotechnic guy, the pyrokinetic guy, excuse me. He, I think, recorded his character like on a Friday, and then the episode aired on like a Sunday night. It was like that last second, which I'm sure the guys at Funimation probably often have to deal with on a constant basis anyway. So it's it's no big deal to me. But yeah, and it was really cool seeing like the immediate response from everybody and all the folks having fun watching the episodes every week and everything. So that was awesome. But that said, we did still have like a fair bit of time to spend on like finessing the performances, like especially I think the main cast in particular. We had plenty of time to get through everything as much as possible. And I think actually, if I'm remembering right, oh yeah, you know what? I think that I might have been away with Kira visiting Texas to record some of our stuff for Tales of Zestiria: The Cross. That's right. I think we went to go visit around that time, and because of that, I think that I had to delay recording my last little bit of stuff on the last episode of Mob Psycho 100. And so when I came back, I think I was one of, if not maybe the last person to record on the entire show. And I did the last episode of the season where he goes, 1,000% psycho, as you'll see tonight on the episode airing. But it was just so much fun, and particularly the last, even just watching it too. I became a quick fan of the show myself as I was watching it. I always say, I think it's episode 8, when Mob and Ritsu are in the alley fighting I always forget the character's name, but the member of Claw who's got like he's like the big muscly guy with the mohawk that Keith Silverstein plays. The fight scene that unfolds in that episode is just some of the most visually stunning, just awesome animation I've ever seen. It's such a cool fight scene. And Reigen's like not really even in the episode. He's just the episode preview at the end, which, by the way, are very difficult to record because I have to speak like the Micro Machines guy. At a mile in a minute, saying a lot of words really quickly. Supporting the official release, that's an excellent decision. Those are very hard to do. But, and then the last couple episodes have some of my favorite scenes. They were an amazing experience because, messing with all the Claw guys, that the whole run of episode 11 is great because, trolling the Claw guys and, not even trolling, just, deceiving them with my position as the leader, supposedly. And then, the crazy high-octane action stuff with the black holes of when, the leader comes in. And then the big dramatic stuff of trying to get Mob to, not do, any of his awful, not succumbing to having to fight anybody with his psychic powers, and the big screaming stuff like that, and then trying to get him to calm down with the you'll be the one hurting in the end, followed by the flashback of meeting little mini Mob too, is so cute. Yeah, and then tonight's episode as well with the my super cool biz casual, I'm incredibly powerful fight scene. Again, and ripping all the Claw guys, a new asshole with all my ranting and raving at them and everything. It was a great experience, and I loved all the this is Reigen's secret technique kind of stuff. Salt Splash is a classic. I love the Aroma Runaway Express was my personal favorite, and God, and getting to know all the cast as a result. We didn't do like a cast party because it was there wasn't a finale to it necessarily, but. I got to know a lot of the other actors as a result of doing this show, and a lot of really nice fans too. When I started doing a lot of conventions, mainly because of Sailor Moon the last couple of years, I met a lot of really wonderful Mob Psycho fans. Oh, and of course, I met Kelly Onolani, who's on Twitter, and she was putting together, I think, was involved with a lot of the photo shoots that we do at Anime Expo and some other conventions where Mob Psycho cosplayers would come together. And me and Casey and Kyle McCarley, Abby Trott was there one day, I think, for one of them. Ryan Bartley, who's Tsubome and Mukai, just a lot of folks, and we had so much fun with that. And then Kyle and I and me and Max and Kyle did a panel at some convention a little while ago. Oh, where we read one of the. I printed out a script of one of the 8-bit shorts that were on the Blu-rays which we did not get the chance to dub, unfortunately, but they were on the Blu-ray as well. And we did a live reading of that. I'll have a link to that in the end cards as well if you guys want to check that out. But yeah, it's been a fun ride. Seriously, we've really enjoyed getting to do this show. I don't know anything about when we'll be doing season 2, but I have indeed been watching it, and I've been enjoying that as well. Yeah, Reigen has absolutely become one of my new favorite characters of all time that I've ever gotten to voice. And just a cool character that I love in general, just because I've become such a big fan of the show, too. And without going into too much detail, because just in case anybody hasn't been watching season 2, like if you happen to be waiting for the dub or whatever, yeah, I love everything about like how he has this duality of like he's at the core, he's not a good person, like by any stretch of the imagination. Like he makes his living basically being a ripoff artist, but he seems to genuinely care. While he is a manipulator and kind of a sleazeball, he genuinely cares about people, and particularly like the fact that he has this. Even though he is using Mob, and I think that, we may or may not see the ramifications of, his misuse of the kid, even though Mob is totally in control of the situation and is kind of, letting himself be taken for a ride because it's no, like, threat to him. He's just kind of, like, going along for it and doing whatever because he doesn't know what he's doing, and he can probably tell. I have a feeling he can tell that Reigen, like, needs him more than Mob needs Reigen. Because Mob doesn't need Reigen, as, may be the case. We'll see. But the fact that, like, they have this kind of, like, brotherly and semi-father-son-ish relationship sort of thing going on, it's a very interesting, dynamic that the two of them have. And, I love Mob as a protagonist, too, and I love kind of seeing him grow. I'm curious to see if Reigen will develop much outside of, the sort of ways that he's set himself in. But he makes for an interesting, a dynamic piece to what Mob is going through, because Mob is obviously the star and he's the one kind of going through everything. But yeah, and I do love the I don't know what'll happen with the OVA as far as a release in the US, but I do love the Reigen OVA. That was pretty funny seeing that as well. There's the graphic novel that's like all about Reigen specifically, which I'm curious to see. I really hope that we'll be getting the because I forget if the English release of the Mob Psycho manga is out officially yet. I know the Dark Horse has it, if I'm remembering correctly, but because I'd love to see more of it. I don't know if season 2 will like finish up the rest of the story. Maybe not necessarily, because I know that there's like a lot more to the manga material, but I'm curious to see where it goes. I really hope that I get to continue playing this character for some time to come. And just thank you everybody for I want to say, just before I wrap up, thank you for just like enjoying and supporting and watching the dub. In recent years, I've become a little jaded to like, well, I'll work on something and I'll put a lot of effort into it, and then I don't necessarily know if it'll actually like be watched by anybody. I mean, like a lot of the live action stuff that I've been recording for like live action Netflix dubs, I presume most people don't watch those, and even like some of the anime series that I work on, even ones that are popular, like people just happen to not see the dub, or like, certain video games that I think are cool, people don't end up playing or whatever. And, with Mob Psycho, because, the dub that we did was so much later after the show had already finished airing the first season. So the fact that people like went out of their way to check out the dub and the fact that it did so well and people enjoyed it so much, I mean, it helps the fact that like the show itself is awesome and it is deserving of, its popularity anyway, regardless of any involvement that we have. But I'm really proud of how the dub turned out. I think that everybody worked super hard. It turned out really, really well. And, I love all the cast, and I would enjoy this dub regardless of whether I was involved with it or otherwise. But, so just thank you everybody for all the support on the series, and thank you for all the really, really kind comments about my performance on Reigen and everything. I really tried to do my absolute, like, the best job I possibly could on him, and I'm glad that it seems like it paid off. That's going to do it. So I hope you guys enjoy seeing the season finale tonight. And also, by the way, in case you want to hear me again tonight, you'll be hearing me as Shawapoof on a very interesting episode of Hunter x Hunter tonight that may involve me enjoying myself to the point of happiness that I have never experienced in my life. as Shallowpoof, not as me, but it's if you know the series, it's that particular episode coming up with a lot of noises. It's funny. Check it out. I'm on there tonight as well. That is going to do it. I believe that I also might be doing some kind of AMA with some of the other cast members tomorrow as well on somewhere. I forgot. I'll post some stuff about it on Twitter, I'm sure. Eric Kimmerer, I think, is putting it together right now. I think he was invited for it. But